Metroid Dread is the most recent game developed by Mercury Steam in the Legendary series that first launched in 1986 in Japan. The series has received much well-deserved praise, but with the absence of high sales numbers, it has been relatively quiet until recently. With the announcement of Metroid Prime 4 in 2017, and the release of the 3DS remake of Metroid 2, Return of Samus, it looked like Metroid was finally making a comeback. After that, however, well, we got nothing. It would take another 4 years until the next 2D installment. But now that it's out, does it live up to its predecessor standards? From a gameplay perspective, Metroid Dread has a movement speed that is just right. Samus moves a bit quicker overall to me than in Super Metroid, and I like that there is no run-walk option like in that game. Holding the L button will let you stand in place and aim in any direction, just like in Samus Returns. With the regular enemies, there is a decently sized variety of them, like the large crustacean-type enemy, or the whale enemy that projects an energy-draining beam from under, but they aren't really that difficult to defeat. Many of them have an attack that is counterable, with the melee attack that is back from Samus Returns. It is very satisfying to land a perfectly timed counter from all types of enemies, ranging from the flying ones to the bosses. Speaking of the bosses, this is the strongest aspect of the game to me. Mercury Steam really nailed it with all the unique and cool ways you can beat these bosses, like using the secret launchpad if you bomb the corner of the crate room, to shine sparking experiment number Z-57. They're all really engaging, and especially the last two are challenging. But they're the type of challenging that makes you want to learn from your mistakes, and so you try to learn their attack patterns and experiment with the items you've acquired thus far to see what is effective and what isn't. It is a very satisfying loop because it gives you another reason to go back and replay the game in hard mode, which is available after you beat the game for the first time. The Emmy I have mixed feelings about. They are the selling point of the game, giving the series, which is already known for its atmospheric tension and the feeling that you are all alone exploring a hostile world, its dread, but I don't particularly like how they are implemented in this game. First off, yes, I do get a little rush every time I enter those areas, but it's because I get to enter those areas willingly that make it less than what it could be. This type of hunting mechanic was much better implemented in Metroid Fusion because, unlike in this game, you know very early on that the SAX is hunting you and will follow you wherever you are in the station. Of course, the instances where you encountered it were scripted, but during that first playthrough, man, your guard has to be all the way up while you explore in that game because you never know when it's nearby. In Dread, you do know. The map clearly highlights which part of the area is an enemy zone, and despite being able to track, detect, and chase you around, it won't leave its domain. If you get caught and can't pull off that counter, you restart in the entrance you came in, and you'll have to keep trying to get through the area and find the central unit and defeat its mother brain inspired ass. They even throw the same ring-type projectiles at you. Once you do that, you gain at first the Omega Blaster, and then the Omega Stream, and now you have to chase the enemy down, machine gun its head armor, and once it's exposed, blast it with the Omega Blaster. The enemy gains a few added abilities as you progress through the game, but the way you defeat them is the same. It doesn't evolve or change in any interesting way. Once you defeat a few of them, the tension of finding and entering those areas wither. Overall, I'm not too crazy about this part of the game. I almost wish they just made it one enemy chasing you around and finding you periodically like in Fusion, but that would be too similar, I guess. Now, what would a Metroid game be without an iconic Chozo statue holding up your item for you to grab? In this game, the classics like Speed Booster and Plasma Beam are back, and they work and play great. The new ones are also cool, and add some nice mobility and attack options. Flash Shift, for example, is an awesome all-around item for traversing the world, and it will be your primary tool to escape and counter many of the boss's movesets in the game. Storm Missile is a seeking missile ability that gives Samus an extra layer of epicness. I like how they made the Super Missile an upgrade to the normal one, as opposed to an alternative like in the old games. I also like that they went the Ice Missile route instead of giving us an Ice Beam, because with the Ice Beam, it would just bog down to you freezing most enemies in place before you pick them off. You could still do that in Dread, but I like it being a limited resource. It feels like some of the items in the game though are redundant, and the order the items you get them make it more apparent. Like, take for example, Spin Boost. It is an item that gives Samus an extra spin jump. 3 items later, you get Space Jump, which makes Spin Boost pointless. The Cross Bomb is even worse, when the next item you get is literally the Power Bomb. If there was better spacing between the items, like how in Super Metroid and Zero Mission you get the high jump boots early on, so that its usefulness will last longer before you acquire Space Jump at the end of the game, then I could see those items being better justified. But even so, those items feel more like placeholders than anything else. Overall though, I like the items, and the new ones add a nice variety to the flow of the game. My favorite part of Metroid games has always been the exploration. The map, the item hunt. I love the inquisitory feeling I get when I enter a new room and I have no idea what to expect. What items might be hidden, the challenges involved to get them. Going to a room and doing all you possibly can to obtain the item that you know is there, but you can't get it because you don't have the proper power-up yet. And then coming back to that room several power-ups later to see if you can attain it. Unfortunately, this is the weakest part of the game to me. The map is very forgettable. There are many different regions, but there are very little parts of the map that stand out to me. I think it being that a lot of the game's map is used on enemy zones is one of the reasons, because there aren't many items to be found in these zones, and it's designed to primarily give you many different ways to hide from the enemies. A good Metroid game is able to blend the exploration and mechanics in a way that makes it uniquely memorable. Not many games could do it better than Super Metroid, for example. Each room has its own story, its own theme. You can enter a room in that game, and it will have you figure out that gimmick in order to progress or acquire that item hidden within. Metroid Dread actually does this beautifully in a room in Galvaran, where a missile is located on the wall of a long vertical passageway. The surefire way to acquire it is for you to ice missile the receding platform next to it, so you have enough time to grapple beam the part that's blocking you from getting it. Now whether you figure it out or stumble across it trying to freeze the flying enemy right below, just like I was trying to do in my first playthrough, you get this awesome little sense of discovery and achievement. This makes the game way more memorable too, because now, in subsequent playthroughs, you are most likely going to associate the room with the feeling you got discovering it, and it will likely cause you to remember how to get that item. This is Mercury's team channeling the best aspects of what make this series great to me. But sadly, there aren't many rooms like that in this game. Also, the item hunt I wish they did a little more with. Too many of the harder items to get required primarily or only the speed booster, like in previous games. I wish they used more of the newer items, like the flash shift, to spice up the item hunt. Graphics-wise, I really like the style they went with in this game. The backgrounds being dynamic give us some cool little hints of enemies, like how you could see that invisible boss a few times before you faced it. It was nice to see all the construction sites and labs in there also. It gave you the feeling that there were people living there before you arrived. The music of Metroid games is the most lasting part of the series for me. Long after I do a playthrough of one of the games, I listen to the soundtrack during work, when I'm reading, you name it. The series' earlier games mastered the atmospheric melodies and tones the world gave off, and moved in lockstep brilliant with it. It didn't do that for me here. In most areas, the music just feels off. The only good soundtrack for me was Barenia. They really nailed it with that one, because it gave off such a haunting and mysterious vibe, and it fits right in place with the submerged aspect of the area. I really hope they can match the themes of the music with the areas, like they did with Barenia in later entries. Metroid Dread has been an absolute blast to play. The close to 12.5 hours it took me to beat the game, with a 100% item collection rate, made it the longest 2D Metroid for me. The game is seriously packed with content. While not every item mechanic or change I enjoyed, this is still one of the best games of the year, and a must-buy if you're looking to get into this genre.